All right. I think we're live. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. If anyone in chat can hear me, just push one. All right, I got a confirmation. Thank you for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 409, Black Tech Talk. Please hit the like button as you come in. Share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. If you would like to engage in the discussion, there will be a link in the chat for you to click on. When you click on the link, make sure you raise your hand so that one of us can acknowledge you and advance you to the panel. If you're trying to get into IT for the first time at the entry level, we do offer IT mentorship. If you're trying to go from one IT role to another, we do offer IT coaching. If you have a resume that needs to be looked at or have some questions about salaries and wages, we do offer salary negotiation discussion. If you're in the NYC area and you're trying to look for IT contract work, Nagone 11 does have Rex on the table. Make sure you get in touch with him at the end of the live stream. Drop the link for you guys, whoever wants to get on. Let me get to the first item on the docket. All right. All right, let me get to this next item. All right, let me advance this person to the panel. All right, let me get to the first item on the docket. This one's from Fierce Telecom. 2020 preview, Microsoft and Google chase Amazon in cloud sector. Amazon Web Services commanding lead in the cloud sector seems insurmountable, but expect Microsoft, Google, and other providers to keep chipping away in 2020. The U.S. Defense Department's decision to award Microsoft a 10-year, $10 billion Joint Enterprise Defense Infrastructure Cloud contract, JEDI, in 2019 will continue to be hotly contested in 2020. In December, Amazon, which had been viewed as a frontrunner for the contract, filed a notice in U.S. Court of Federal Claims saying it planned to contest the Pentagon's decision to give Microsoft the cloud computing contract. When the decision was first announced on October 25th, Amazon said in a statement that it was the clear leader in cloud computing, and a detailed assessment purely on the comparative offerings clearly led to a different conclusion. Despite the Pentagon's denial, Amazon complained in its filing that President Donald Trump's dislike of Amazon and Washington Post owner Jeff Bezos was the reason that Microsoft landed the JEDI contract. The JEDI contract has been a miss ever since it was announced 2 years ago, which included Oracle and IBM complaining the process was unfair in several court cases after they were dropped from contention. Regardless of whether Microsoft keeps the contract, it doesn't seem likely that it will be overturned. 2020 will be yet another banner year for the large hyperscale cloud providers. Microsoft and Google spent 2019 investing heavily in new technologies such as Kubernetes for Microsoft, as well as building out new data centers to keep pace with the capacity demand. IBM Cloud, Oracle, and Alibaba Cloud have also made their marks in the public, private, and hybrid cloud sectors. While Amazon, Microsoft, and Google dominate the top end of the market, there are numerous revenue opportunities for smaller players at the regional and national levels, both here and abroad. Last year saw a bit of a lull in CapEx, capital expenditures, spending by some of the hyperscale providers, which also includes Facebook, Apple, and Netflix. This impacted the bottom lines of some vendors, such as Arista Networks, with more 400G deployments in 2020. Vendors should be back in good graces of the cloud providers' budgets. Distributed cloud in combination with network edge compute will also be big in 2020. Service providers such as Verizon and CenturyLink are bringing cloud computing to the edge to make it easier for developers to create and deploy low latency applications for 5G, IoT, and autonomous vehicles. Lastly, expect SD-WAN, software-defined wide area network vendors, to continue to develop closer relationships with cloud providers in order to offer cloud-based software as a service, SaaS applications, such as Office 365 from the cloud without the need to go to a data center during the round trip. So this is very important. And the reason why I put this on the docket, there was actually a different article, but it's behind a paywall and I can't get to it. And I'm not going to pay for it because I don't think that content is worth it. However, this is still is closer to the other article, but Microsoft is making headwinds into 2020 with Office 365, Active Directory in the cloud, and they're pushing, I think by 2022, this sort of desktop as a service, right? So they're talking about putting Windows, virtualizing Windows for customers. And I think going forward, that will be the future of Windows, where everything it won't matter what kind of computer you have or want. They can run it on Android, they can run it on Mac, and they can run it on a computer that has no operating system. So even if you have Windows 7 and you didn't upgrade, you can download, you'll be able to log in to a Microsoft service, desktop as a service, and they'll be offering that over it. Now, why is this important? Because we're talking about becoming a network administrator, and network admins are still important between now and 2025, because there's going to be a lot of transition going from these legacy networks to maybe cloud, or just upgrading their networks from basic Cat 5 to Cat 6 and so on and so forth, and laying down fiber. laying down new wireless networks such as 802.11.ax. Let me bring that up so that we have a better understanding of what we're talking about here. All right, let me pull this up. We got Josh on the panel, man. What it do, Wody?
What's good? What's good, Mike?
John. All right. Let me read this real quick. This one's from networkworld.com. What is 802.11ax Wi-Fi 6, and what will it mean for 802.11ac? Each new Wi-Fi standard has brought significant improvements in performance, with the most recent 802.11ac offering an impressive theoretical maximum rate of 1.3 gigabits per second. Unfortunately, these gains have not been enough to keep pace with demand, leading to that exacerbated cry heard across airports, malls, and hotels, stadiums, homes, and offices. Why is this wireless so slow? The IEEE is taking another crack at boosting Wi-Fi. Yeah, I'll bring the going in. IEEE is taking another crack at boosting Wi-Fi performance with a new standard called 802.11ax, or high efficiency wireless, which promises a fourfold increase in average throughput per user. 802.11ax, which is known as Wi-Fi 6 under a new naming convention, is designed specifically for high density public environments like trains, stadiums, and airports. But it will also be beneficial in Internet of Things, IoT deployments, in heavy usage homes, in apartment buildings, and in offices that use bandwidth hogging applications like video conferencing. 802.11ax is also designed for cellular data offloading. In this scenario, the cellular network offloads wireless traffic to complementary Wi-Fi network in cases where local cell reception is poor, or in situations where a cell network is being taxed. Excitement surrounding the new standard is high, even though the 802.11ax is not expected to be finalized until early 2019. This has already been done, so the device is already out there. The vendor community is chomping at the bit. Pre-standard chipsets have been shipping since last year, and the first 802.11ax routers are currently hitting the market. In a typical Wi-Fi deployment scenario, early adopters are comfortable using pre-standard products, which readily win certification from the Wi-Fi Alliance after they fully comply with the standard with a firmware upgrade. The fundamental problems with Wi-Fi are that bandwidth is shared among endpoint devices. Access points can have overlapping coverage areas, especially in dense deployments, and end users can be moving between access points. The current solution, based on a technology from the old shared Ethernet days called Carrier Sense Multiple Access CDMA, or CSMA, requires endpoints to listen for an all clear signal before transmitting. In the event of interference, congestion, or collision, the endpoint goes into a back off procedure, waits for the all clear, then transmits. In a crowded stadium, a busy airport, or a packed train with hundreds, even thousands of end users attempting to stream video at the same time, the system loses efficiency and performance suffers. The good news is that 802.11ax promises improved performance, extended coverage, and longer battery life. 802.11ax can deliver a single stream at 3.5 gigabits per second. And with new multiplexing technology borrowed from the world of LTE cellular, it can deliver 4 simultaneous streams to a single endpoint for a total theoretical bandwidth of astounding 14 gigabits per second. I'm not going to go too far into this because it's not really important as to all the intricate details. But what's important is for you to understand they're rolling this stuff out right now as we speak. Okay, I was at TD Garden, and they're talking and met with their head of IT for the Celtics, for the Boston Celtics, and this is the stuff that they're talking about rolling out once the season ends. So because they have to wait until the games are over so that they can actually roll this stuff out. This is what they're talking about rolling out. There are multiple stadiums. You got 30 plus NFL teams, 30 plus Major League Baseball teams, 30 plus NBA teams that are going to be trying to roll all of this stuff out between now and 2022. They're going to need a lot of network admins to help out with this. This is a long-term project. So you're going to see a lot of recs come down the table or come down the pike looking for people who understand wireless access points and laying down cable, laying down fiber, that sort of thing. They don't have enough resources out there. There's not enough people to actually help out with this. So human resources is going to be key in this. So getting a better understanding of 802.11ax is going to be very critical because rolling out 5G is in parallel with this. It's easier to roll this out because it's just a couple of access points that they just need to replace within the infrastructure itself, the existing infrastructure. But 5G is going to be side by side with this. It's going to roll parallel with it. You can't have one without the other. If you're going to roll out 5G, you got to upgrade your all these other networks to 802.11ax. Right now, we use 802.11ac, but that will change after next year. Josh, you have anything you want to add to this? What's going on, Nicole?
Yeah, I was going to say.
What's going on, dude?
Man,
Sure.
what's up, Nagone? How you doing?
What's going on, Josh?
Mm-hmm.
All right. No, I was just going to say that I agree with you. They rolling this stuff out now. All these big cities now, they are all the local service providers for internet.
Mm-hmm.
They've been rolling out for the last couple of years the infrastructure for Wi-Fi networks throughout the whole city.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, like Las Vegas got Cox, and they monopolize the city basically, where they have all these access points around the city, and this technology is going to be added pretty soon. So
mm-hmm.
that shows you that you can hop in on these local service providers as well. How you can connect to the Cox network and then just move around the city without losing a connection. So this will greatly improve it, and also this will open up jobs locally for people to actually manage these and set these up. So I agree with you totally. And what you was talking about earlier with the
cloud.
With the cloud, with the software as a service.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, I think your operating system is going to be stored in the cloud at some point once this technology catches up, and that's kind of what Microsoft and let's say Google, whatever they cloud you have it, the cloud. It's going to be software as a service, and it's going to be pushed from the cloud. And the only way you're going to be able to access it at some point is by logging into your Microsoft account, quote unquote, Microsoft account to actually access it. And that's to prevent people from actually stealing the software. That's always in the back of their mind because they lose a lot of money when it comes to that. So that will help with that. Mm-hmm. So and that's what they want to help their bottom line at the end of the day.
They're also moving Xbox to the cloud too, so that eventually everything that you see that's legacy right now after 2022, that's not even going to matter anymore. Everything's going to move off to that area. But you're going to see a whole lot of recs come on the table for 6-month, 9-month, 12-month contracts. I saw one recently, man, for an 18-month contract for a rollout, man, for a municipality. So what Josh is referring to is that there's a municipality rollout. You see public, you see some of these access points, these dual antennas on some of these light poles and stuff like that in some major cities, is because that's what we call municipal networks. They've invested into their own networks. If you see some of the police officers, or not even just police officers or first responders, but you see, code enforcement, multiple departments have these tablets and stuff like that. They're connected through a municipal network. It's outside of the civilian band. You can't see it, but they can. It's all rolled out that way. And like Josh is saying, a lot of that stuff is going to be upgraded at some point because warranties start to run out and so on and so forth. And so they're going to need a lot of network analysts, network admins that can come out and actually understand that stuff and be somewhat have very little supervision to actually work independently on their own. They're going 11.
Yo.
You have anything you want to contribute?
No. I think Mike, I think you've actually covered it, man. Really, really, really good. I'm just sitting here kind of like how, just checking out what you're saying. You're dead on the money on that. Those jobs are going to be rolling out for a while. I think they're going to be rolling out a little bit longer than 18 months. They're going to be out for a bit because a lot of companies, a lot of situations are going to be a little bit slow. One thing you have to say is with some guys are going to be up on the uptake quickly. Some are going to be behind the schedule, like many, and it's going to take a little while to roll this out enterprise wide cleanly. So this is going to be around for a bit, but how you broke it down is exactly how it's coming down. Yeah.
Comcast has major stake in LTE now too. If I remember correctly, I think they were in the bids to actually buy Sprint at one point. So obviously that's all taken care of with what's the company from Japan, SoftBank. So I think that's all been taken care of. But Comcast has immense amount of buying, spending power, and they will start pushing their own network at some point. I've read for the last few years that they've been trying to get into the cellular game, 5G and Wi-Fi game. Right now, they have a small stopgap where they're kind of giving everybody who's a customer access to this sort of mesh network that they have with their customer base. You can pass through neighborhoods and see an open Comcast network available, and you can actually connect to it if you're a customer. You just sign into it. But that's the sort of stopgap thinking that they have. But once they do a full rollout, they're going to need a lot of hands on deck, and a lot of guys. A lot of people in our community got to be ready for this because Comcast serves a major portion of predominantly Black neighborhoods. All right, so let me jump to this next item on the docket. All right. All right, next item on the docket is from Red Hat. 10 networking guides for Linux sysadmins. Here are the most read network guides for 2019. Whether you're a beginner or an advanced user, there's bound to be something here you'll find useful. Let me expand this out. This was a great year for sysadmins interested in broadening their skills and making friends with their networking colleagues. As we closed out the last few months of the year, our talented writers shared their expertise throughout the layers of the TCP/IP stack. Network novices had the opportunity to learn basic troubleshooting tools, configuring VLANs, befriend network manager, become comfortable with DNS fundamentals, and much more. Of course, we didn't leave our advanced users hanging. Power users had the chance to familiarize themselves with the latest trends in software-defined networking, build their own VPN service, sniff the wire with TCP dump, automate DNS configuration with Ansible. Knowing what goes on beyond your NIC isn't just good for bonding with your network colleagues. It's also a great way to better understand the systems that you design, operate, and troubleshoot on a daily basis. Here's a recap of our 10 most popular networking articles. A beginner's guide to network troubleshooting in Linux. Every system administrator needs to have at least basic understanding of network troubleshooting. And the first rule of network troubleshooting to remember is packets don't lie. This is very true. It's actually a good article. I think we covered it before. DNS 101, an introduction to domain name services. Domain name provides the internet much more user-friendly way of referencing servers, but have you ever wondered how it works under the covers? I think it's another article we kind of covered in the past, but this is actually fundamentally good. VLAN for sysadmins, the basics. Feeling a little shaky on your VLAN knowledge, this article gives you the fundamentals. This is actually really good if you're going to work with Cisco equipment. 6 practical use cases for Nmap. Nmap is a powerful network discovery and inventory tool for Linux. Here are 6 practical use cases to get you started. Becoming friends with Network Manager. You need to configure a Linux machine with Network Manager, learn how and why. Packet sniffer basics for network troubleshooting. DNS configuration with Ansible. This is new. A lot of people are up on Ansible like that, but Josh has talked about this maybe a few weeks ago, but you gotta get in tune with Ansible, but that's at the later end. The easiest way to learn Ansible automation is to dive in and give it a try. Yep. Getting started with software-defined networking. This is going to be important going forward with these new networks that are coming out. Configure and isolate Linux containers with SDN and container network interface plugins. So software-defined networks is basically networking through lines of code. Before, back in the day, you would have plugged in a physical wire, a physical LAN cable, RJ45, into a switch or a router or something like that. Now you configure networks through lines of code when you're talking about the cloud. So that's why software-defined networking is important. How to configure a VLAN in Linux and run your own VPN with LibreSwan. I'm not familiar with LibreSwan, but I'm pretty sure Josh might have an idea. Need to run your own VPN. This article will get you started with an open source option. So I bring all this up because I think it's relevant to those who want to pass the Network Plus. Let me see. A beginner's guide. This first one right here, definitely going to help you with the exam. DNS 101, going to help you with the exam. VLAN for sysadmins, going to help you with that exam. 6 practical, this one will help you with the exam as well. 6 practical use cases for Nmap will help you. Becoming friends with Network Manager will help you. Packet sniffer basics for troubleshooting will definitely help you on the exam. DNS for configuration with Ansible, not so much. This is more of a hat trick when you're already in that position. So if you can understand this while you're in that area, it's going to be more beneficial than not. Getting started with software-defined networking will definitely help you with the exam, and that should give you a leg up in the interview. How to configure a VLAN in Linux, that's going to help you out in the exam as well. If you plan on taking Linux Plus as well, it's going to help you out big time. So let me go into the Network Plus, because I think we talk a lot about certifications, and certification is going to be big going into this. So let's go into Network Plus. So what we're looking at right now is CompTIA.org. CompTIA Network Plus, exam code N10007. This is the latest. So what skills will you learn? Networking concepts. Explain the purpose of a variety of networking concepts and implement them appropriately. Network security. Summarize physical security and common attacks while securing the wired and wireless network. Infrastructure. Determine and explain the appropriate cabling device and storage technologies. Network troubleshooting. Explain the network troubleshooting methodology and appropriate tools to support connectivity and performance. So we just talked about that on the last article. There's about 3 articles on there that reference network troubleshooting that's actually going to be beneficial here. Network operations, use best practices to manage the network, determine policies, and ensure business continuity. So this is a lot of what goes on in the network admin's daily operation, probably 33% or 1/3 of your daily business use cases and responsibilities are going to revolve around network operations. So you spend a lot of time talking to people, C-level and below too. Networking concepts. You should have a fairly decent understanding of the network concepts. The article that we just referenced will actually give you all of that from the first two articles that was listed. Infrastructure, we talked about infrastructure with 802.11ax and 5G. All that's going to be very relevant, especially 5G. You got to understand 5G. There are two bands to 5G, 600 megahertz and I think it's 2.4 gigahertz or 2.4 gigahertz that they're talking about. So jobs that use Network Plus, junior network administrator, that's what we're talking about today. So here's a, how does CompTIA Network Plus compare? Compares to Cisco CCENT, Cisco CCNA, and Microsoft MTA Networking Fundamentals. Performance-based questions, yes. So you run into this exam, the latest exam, the 007 exam, does have configuration simulators on there that you have to complete. And if you do not complete those simulators, you will fail the exam. There is no getting around that. Those are heavily weighted within the exam itself. Exam focus, job role base, covers networking technologies across all vendors and solutions. Experience level, a minimum of 9 months networking experience recommended in this vendor.
Hey, Mike, is this for the CCIE?
No, this is for Network Plus from CompTIA.
Okay.
CCIE is very much at the pinnacle of Cisco's certification ranks. Only if people even have them.
And it's a savage exam.
Yeah, you got to fly out to go take it. So
yeah.
The new exam has been updated and reorganized to address the current networking technology, including the following: critical security concepts to help network professionals work with security practitioners, cloud computing best practices, and coverage of newer hardware and virtualization techniques. So virtualization, not just VMware, but you're also running into containers. So containers are going to be important. I think the exam has maybe one question about containers on there, like Kubernetes, but that's the extent. Concepts to give individuals the skills to keep the network resilient. So you're talking about network uptime, business continuity, things of that nature. The exam is 90 minutes. Passing scores are 720. I think I got maybe, I don't remember what I got on my exam. I got well over 700 at the time. It was weighted differently though. 90 questions on there. So if there's 90 questions in 90 minutes, you only have 1 minute to answer a question. You can't screw around trying to fight with a question. If you don't figure it out in 30 to 45 seconds, move on to another question. That's my exam tip. Spending too much time trying to bust your head figuring out what the answer is. If you can't figure it out in 30 seconds, 45 seconds, move on. You're gonna need a lot of time on these simulations because those are heavily weighted. So you want to spend at least 2 to 3 minutes on a simulator rather than 2-3 minutes on a single question.
I think the name of the game for those questions are you got to know them cold. You got to know what you're looking at. So as soon as you see the answer pop, you hit it and you move on to the next. Mm-hmm. If you're wrestling with it and having all kind of issues, things might go poorly for you.
Yep.
And you can also, I think from what I remember, and I took this a couple years ago, you can set a question to review and you can come back to it. So, I mean, it's just in it like any other standardized test. You can mark it. If you don't know the answer in that time period that Mike and Nagone just said, then you can move on to the next question, keep going through the test, and then you can come back at the end if you have time left to answer the rest of those questions that you did not know. So, or that you needed more time on.
Yeah, but you may be drowning at that point.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, if it's a lot of them that you're doing that on, then yeah, it's gonna be tough for you.
Yep. So if you go to the community tab, let me Black interest. Go to the community tab. I posted Pearson IT's certification not certification, but a discount code in there. The offer ends on January 1st, 2020. So next Wednesday that ends. You had better get up on there. 40% off coupon. Let's go to their site. And what you're gonna find here is CompTIA certification books. And let me see, CompTIA resource center. Where's the book at? Okay. This is a book I recommend. I haven't taken the exam since God knows when, but my understanding, talking with people as of recently, a couple months ago, who have taken 007, they said it's actually pretty brutal now, as opposed to before. They're pretty strict. So I use Pearson books because I think that Pearson has the best structure and the least amount of grammatical errors in them. So very few errors that I've run into. They're publishing. And I like the way the book is structured. So it asks you before every chapter, do I know this? And then you kind of go down the questions at the beginning of the chapter. And if you can answer all the questions at the beginning of the chapter, then you just move on to the next chapter. You don't waste a lot of time. So yeah, let me make sure I drop this in the chat as well. I think you get 40% off coupon. What is it? 30 bucks for the book. You can't beat that, in my opinion. If you're new to networking, I would actually jump on Network Essentials as well. I think that's a pretty good book. I just like to read because I'm a nerd like that. Drop this link in the chat. Josh, you have anything you want to add to this?
Nah, you pretty much covered everything. I can't really add to it. You covered it all.
All right.
Oh yeah, one thing I can't add. All the stuff you was talking about earlier, as far as like DNS, setting up VPNs, setting up VLANs, all that stuff is open source. Yep. And when you talk about Linux, because I'm a Linux guy, yeah, I know that, but all this stuff is free out there, and they have guides on how to set it all up. So you can learn this stuff on your own. You don't have to go through some type of standardized course or whatever. And in my opinion, I'm more of a hands-on type of learner. So in order for me to actually grasp something, I actually have to do it. I can't just read it in a book and I got it. You got to actually do it. And that should be everybody, especially when it comes to this networking stuff. Setting up VLANs, VPNs, all that stuff, because you have to work with configuration files and, creating keys and all that. So you actually have to do it to fully understand it. So take that time. It's all free. You can set up a Linux server. You can even set up a Windows server by downloading the testing version of Windows Server. You can create a Microsoft account. And I haven't done this in a while, so I don't know if it's changed, but I know you could download server versions of server. Well, the server versions of Windows and play around with it. You can set up a DNS server, you can set up VPNs, all that stuff on the Windows system. Just the same as Linux. It's different. You have to follow different guides, obviously, but I mean, the information is out there. All you gotta do is get it, grasp it, and try to figure it out.
All right. Let me get to the last item on the docket. This one is from dice.com. Network administrator job interview tips and tricks. This should be interesting. Expand this out. Patient problem solving and interpersonal skills. These are among the most important qualities for a network administrator, especially when hunting for a new job. But in order to have a successful job interview, candidates must show they know the technical nuts and bolts of the role down to a fundamental level. And that level of detail can throw some candidates off track. Mark Kendi, a lead technical recruiter for Mondo, said network administrator candidates can easily get tripped up by seemingly basic questions, including beginner network administrative terminology. That's what we're talking about. It seems obvious, but in interviews, if you can't answer questions like that, you're not showing you care about learning about these things. And that there's a lack of academic understanding, he said. Always prep on your ports. That's a question that's going to pop up pretty frequently. He's not wrong about this. I tell you guys to read a book and actually understand what it is that they're talking about, having that in-depth knowledge that you can speak to. Here are some examples of truly basic questions you must prepare for. What is a network and what are the different types of networks? What is the difference between a router and a switch? Very critical. Every interview talks about this. I don't care what job you go to, what job interview you go to. Even for desktop support and help desk, they ask that question.
That's a fact.
What's a subnet? What are different cable types? Very critical to understand your cable types. I asked what's supposed to be a security engineer the other week, who's supposed to have a CISSP or supposed to be taking it. He didn't know the difference between the RJ11 and the RJ45. He's finished.
He finished.
Yes, finished.
Finish. Damn.
Be prepared to talk knowledge and certifications. Certifications are also key in this context. Many network administrators possess certs such as Cisco CCNA and CCNP, but you can't just name drop a few and expect the interviewer to move on. Network administrator candidates must be prepared to talk about the concrete knowledge they've gained during their education and certification process. They want to know that you can live that certification and what you can apply from it. Otherwise, what value are you adding that you're worth $10,000 more than the next person? Kindly said, Hindi said, they want to make sure they're not just checking the box that you have a certification. I've been saying this to you guys since day one. You can't just get the certification and think you're going to get the job. The certification is going to get you the interview. It's not going to get you the job. You got to be able to speak. You got to be able to speak the truth to power to a lot of the stuff that you're supposed to be a subject matter expert on, or SME. Nagona Levin's an IT recruiter. He can speak to that as well.
Yeah, that's an absolute fact, Mike. This is a great article. It really kind of breaks down to exactly kind of how you're going to be evaluated. A recruiter is just not someone who's just going to just recruit, just try to throw you into a job. They're going to take a look to see exactly where your skill sets are. They're going to understand what's going on. They're going to understand exactly where your knowledge depth is or what holes you might have, because in any interview preparation or anything else like that, they got to prep you to make sure you go into that interview prepared to do well. So they got to see where your gaps are. And so that recruiter should be quite knowledgeable themselves. So at the end of the day, you can't come in there, big gaps, not understanding what's going on, not being a real, being an expert in your field or taking ownership of really the field that you're in. Just saying, well, I got my certification and I'm okay. This constant, what we would say, continuing education that you got to do on your own. A lot of companies are going to come in there. A lot of their tech interviews are going to be difficult. Okay. And, and if the recruiter is going to get you ready, you're going to have a fairly decent skill set and know a lot of different things and, or know a lot about that position, because you don't know how deep that manager is going to get into that interview with you. HR ain't going to do jack. It's going to be that hiring manager who's going to sit down with you and he's going to have his questions all laid out. And then he's just going to start seeing what's happening with you. And he's going to just really, take you into the, he's going to take you out into the weeds if need be. So you've got to know what's going on. You've got to be tight. You've got to consistently be upgrading your knowledge base. Technical people or technology managers and so forth, hiring managers, they like technically smart people who are very academic as well as hands-on. They like that. So that means that you are a technology leader and that what's going on in their site, and depending on what they're doing and if they're making moves, if they're upgrading, if they're migrating to whatever, you are the kind of person they can have not only for that position, for that immediate position, but can scale to the next level of advancement that company might be going to in their technology. So you have to be on top of your game, and that's really what this article is really saying. And I think it's banging dead on the money. It's dead on it. It's dead on it.
Yeah.
And can I add to that right fast?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to say everything Nagon is saying is true. But also don't fall into the trap of getting those I forget what they call, but it's like the test questions where you're just studying the test questions. To pass the exam. Okay, you do that. You sit there and memorize the questions that are on the exam for the test. You go through and pass the test, and you get into a job interview, and they ask you specifics about these questions that you answered on this certification test that you should know, and you're looking dumbfounded because you don't understand exactly what they asking you because all you did was study the answers for the actual questions on the test. That's stupid, in my opinion. So just don't fall for that. Don't go to those websites where they say, oh, we have the actual test questions, and you go through and pay money for some testing software that goes through and now it has its place. That'll help you, but still you need to understand the information. You need to understand how all this works. So you're not looking, because I know people with certifications that can't get a job because they go into interviews and they don't know exactly what they're talking about, because all they know is the questions, the answers to the questions on the test. If they ask you something outside of that and you don't know, you're screwed. So I mean, just to throw that out there, based on what Nagon just stated.
All right, let me get to this rest of this article. Be careful and selective when you put certifications on a resume. If it's been a few years since you've earned that certification, it might be worth spending a few hours reviewing your class notes and any other materials to make sure you can discuss whatever might be brought up. Demonstrating that you are keeping up with different tech can also be a big plus, and it shows you know your technical acumen can be added. In other words, spend time prepping for questions about your certifications and skill set, particularly any skills mentioned in the original job description. For instance, how are you using a skill set day to day to help you do your job? Are there any technology you're looking to work with more? Throughout the interview process, Kendi said it's really important to tie skills back to recent work experience. They want to know what brands you're working with, be it Cisco or Juniper. They will want to know model numbers. If you don't know what you're working with, it shows you're not really engaged. So you can try to, you don't have to know every single network switch. I don't know exactly which network stack we're actually using because I'm not involved in that process. I don't even know what's in the closet because I don't have access to that closet. All I know is that we use Meraki, but I don't know which version we're actually using. But that doesn't really matter because that stuff can be spun up in the cloud as well. So that's what they're looking for. You can't just be a hype man for the brand and not understand the products that you're actually using and utilizing. Let me finish the rest of this article. If you want to really impress a potential employer, describe some challenges you've overcome. If you solve why a network is failing at a critical moment, for example, or it helped expand a network with no loss on uptime or performance, you should definitely tell those stories at the appropriate moment. The hiring manager will inevitably ask you questions designed to determine your experience level. Here are some common ones that pop up. What types of technology did you work with, and what brands did you work with? What was the general size of the environment with regard to the number of users and load? So how many people were in that environment? Some companies have 500, some companies have 250, some companies have 100,000, like GE, not uncommon. Did you handle any network expansions? Network expansions, have you added any access points? Have you set up any new rack cages and things like that? Things of that nature. Guest networks. What was the most challenging task you had, and how did you overcome it? That could be a variety of areas for a challenge. For some people, a challenge could be, resolving a desktop issue with a network issue. A network port goes bad on a jack for the cubicle that they're sitting in. That could be a network challenge. A down Wi-Fi access point could be a challenge as well. How did you resolve that though? Soft skills are definitely important, as is the ability to show a professional demeanor. That means exhibiting patience with people who may not understand highly technical systems, but demand that the network always remain operational nonetheless. These are what we call snowflakes in the workplace. Sometimes a snowflake usually consists of a person who has a temper tantrum over something that they may not even understand. And so it's up to you to lay everything down in layman's terms to that person, individual, as to why something may be wrong and what's going to be done about it. De-escalation is the key here. If you don't have good communication skills, you're not going to get the job. Kendi said, you're going to be interacting with people who are going to need you to express yourself very clearly. Josh,
very important.
Yep.
Very important.
Yeah, Josh alluded to this. Josh does not like to talk to people a whole lot, so he likes to hang in the data center and just chill out there. Doesn't really want to talk to too many people, but he can. This is just his preference. Am I wrong, Josh?
No, you're 100% right. I would prefer to talk to the computers, so to speak, through the keyboard versus talking to a bunch of people. But I can do it though. I have the skills. I mean, I was in the military, so I had to lead people. I had to train people. So I had to do it, and you have to do it in these spaces. I'm not saying you don't learn to do it, but I just don't. I just prefer to sit in the data center. That's just my personal feelings on it. And I mean, that's just how I feel about it. But you have to open yourself up and talk to people and show people that you understand whatever you're working on in order to move ahead.
That's exactly correct. You're not going to move up if you don't have good communication skills. They're going to look at you like kind of like a back, kind of like a back, door, kind of up, I don't know, trolley put in the back, and you just sit there, you go, you do whatever you have to do, but don't expose this person to anyone, and that's going to limit you. It's going to limit you immensely, and you're certainly not going to move up, and they may have, if you're really good and you're super technical and you're very good, they'll just leave you in the back, but they're just not going to let you come out there and interact with people. That's gonna limit your career. So communication skills is very important. And I've seen guys who were really good at one aspect of the job, but they couldn't communicate well, and they kind of hit them away, kind of like the bald-headed stepchild. You know what I mean? In the back, hanging loose, but not out front, and certainly not moving up. And that's going to affect not only your upward mobility, but your earnings as well. So definitely have good communication skills. Very important.
A proactive, creative mindset is also important to demonstrate to an interviewer. As an experienced network administrator knows, the resources aren't always there to get the job done, demanding alternative plans. This goes back to having a few stories of overcoming challenges ready to tell. You need to show that you can do as much as possible with a bad situation. Sometimes you don't have everything you need, but someone who will go above and beyond to make it work, that's a skill set that's underrated as well, he said. An ability to work with complex teams of very smart team members is another critical capability of a network administrator, explained Nick Bartlett, Chief People Officer at London-based IT software and services company 1E. What we're generally looking for are people who can articulate on a granular level what part they played in a project, he said. Face to face, they can sometimes struggle to explain that. It's important that they can detail of how they contributed, because we're looking to see if they can replicate that again. As a result, many questions during the interview may focus not only on your team building abilities, but how you reacted to curveballs and change. It's important that your answers highlight your analytical abilities, as well as your capacity to actually work with teammates to find appropriate solutions, some potential questions. How do you build relationship within the company? When have you had to deal with a technology or service that didn't work or had to be scrapped? How do you react to change process? The change process is a part of an ITIL organization structure for ticket management, business and ticket management. Bartlett said another great way to stand out is to use an example of a project gone wrong, a failure, to demonstrate how you grew or learned an essential new capability. It might seem like a risky move, but hiring managers that know that not every challenge is necessarily overcome. It's what you learn from it, and how do you adapt your system to ensure that these failure didn't happen again. That's key. We're looking for candidates who can show they are passionate about the role they are applying for, and that it will challenge them, and that they are willing to learn from it. He said, "There's nothing more terrifying than someone saying they've never been a part of a project that failed. I've been a part of many projects that have failed, and I have seen many RGEs, resume generating experiences." So yeah, I think this article was bang on the money. I have no disagreements with this article at all. No caveats, no nothing. I think they banged it right on its head. And so I have these conversations, we're using this article to have a conversation about what you're going to be going into when it comes to this IT game. A lot of guys, want to drive trucks and stuff like that and pop wheelies on bikes and go from that to bagging groceries to being a blockchain developer or a network engineer. Not going to happen, buddy. Hate to break the news to you. It's not going to happen like that.
Expectations have to be set in a very realistic way. It's going to pop the wheelies. That's funny, Mike. But anyway, yeah, you really are going to look to step up to this. There's a whole process. And that's one of the things that I want to make sure that we're really clear on. And Mike's dead on the money. These articles he just read were really good. I can't say anything. I'm sitting here like, oh man, they hit every key point. Very important to understand the process, what it's going to take to get there. There's a lot to have at the end of the tunnel, and it's not going to take 20 years to get butter laid in this game. But you have to put your time in, coming through the door, hitting the ground floor, and you get your certifications. You really lay out, your program to really achieve what level that you want to have. I'm talking about now, just kind of coming in on the entry level, the junior level right now, which is going to take some work. You certainly are going to have a lot to work with. A lot of jobs out there, a lot of opportunity, but you're going to have to put the work in. And for those who think that there's shortcuts and you're going to just come right in here and just jump right in here and become a blockchain developer in 6 months and be looking at a $250,000 a year job, pigs fly. Okay. You know what I'm saying? That's what I have to say. It's a dream. It's an absolute delusion. You have to look at this thing for what it is. And to really understand it, you got to get it on the ground floor and work towards achieving some of these certifications, some of these goals, and you'll see what it's going to take. And it's easily doable, but it's just going to take some time.
Yeah. Josh, you're a DBA now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What kind of DBA are you, Josh? SQL or what kind?
SQL, Microsoft SQL.
SQL?
Yeah, and I just mainly manage the servers, so to speak. It's not really much querying, SQL querying, writing SQL statements and all that. It's more of the actual management of the servers, which I have a lot of experience in when I did systems administration work. So
Awesome.
it kind of falls in line with that more.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any development skills? That's just
yes. That's how I actually got into databases. Developing, I developed an application while I was in Afghanistan to manage contracts, government contracts. So I developed something. It was all front end access based. So I know a lot of VBA as well as setting up the tables and all that stuff on the development side of SQL on the server side. And then I also developed a couple other applications, one for the DOE, and it's a few other applications that I've developed. But that's how I kind of got into the whole DBA role, because they seen I had the skills for development. And they kind of took a chance on me to do the administration side of it, since I had enough to bring to the table at that for that position.
Gotcha. Really good. Appreciate it.
Yeah, all the articles are in the docket in the description beneath the video now. I've updated the docket so you guys can follow along. I know some of you guys have questions about that. But we have to set our expectations to be more realistic and authentic. You're not going to go from, like I said, bagging groceries at Piggly Wiggly to playing with someone's network. The questions in that article that we just read are 99% accurate. 99% accurate. You better know your ports. You better know your protocols. You better have a story to tell about failure. If you don't have any stories to tell about failure, you'll probably get kicked to the bottom of the list in terms of callbacks. And so having this conversation now, so you can plan out your 2020 year is going to actually be critical, because like I said before in the beginning, that a lot of networks are being rolled out for 802.11ax with 5G. Like the article was saying, 802.11ax, the new Wi-Fi protocol, actually is going to be the last mile to 5G, where 5G offloads the network traffic to that Wi-Fi access point or that network. And so, do you know this technology? How does all this come into play? Autonomous vehicles are going to start playing into this. We know that Tesla's cars have Wi-Fi and they need to connect to a network, but this is a part of the mass rollout of fourth industrial rollout. And so take all that into consideration. IoT is very big in this as well, if Internet of Things. That's going to be really huge. Traffic lights, street lamps that are Wi-Fi capable, libraries, new infrastructure, stadiums, like the article was talking about, stadiums. All your major sports teams are going to have some form of 802.11, IoT, and 5G, all in these facilities. LAN cable rollouts, fiber optic rollouts, decommissioning servers, redeploying of servers, and things of that nature. That's going to be really critical to get in the network admin job, because that's what they're going to be looking for. I met with the head of the Boston Celtics IT organization, and that's the sort of stuff that they're working on right now. Let me look up next CompTIA cert. Yeah, here's another CompTIA cert I like to throw in there. CompTIA Server Plus. This is a non-expiration, non-expiry certification. And so this is not something that you only have to pass once. You don't have to pass it twice. You don't have to re-update it. For all intents and purposes, once it's passed, you're good. Maximum of 100 questions, 90 minutes. That means you only got less than 30 seconds per question. Prerequisites is just the A+ certification. If you have your A+, then you should be fine. The exam description is Server Plus covers server architecture, administration, storage, security, networking, troubleshooting, as well as disaster recovery. Disaster recovery is really big. It's part of business continuity. You got to know your stuff there. What skills will you learn? Server architecture, understand, configure, and support servers components. Security, apply physical is data and network data security techniques. Troubleshooting, diagnose, and resolve system hardware, software, connectivity, storage, and security issues. Server administration, manage and maintain servers, including OS configuration, access control, and virtualization. Networking, configure systems for network connectivity, including physical and logical elements. Storage, support storage devices technology, including capacity and growth planning. Disaster recovery, understand disaster recovery and implement backup techniques. So the ability to make sure that you can have high availability of tape backups and things of that nature. A lot of companies still use tape backups. That's just their nature. They're not going to get away from that until something better comes along. They don't 100% trust cloud as of yet. So that's key. Drop that in the chat for you all as well. What else was I going to bring up? Yeah, we can go to Linux Foundation next. Actually, I won't go to Linux Foundation because I think at the junior level, that's not really important. That certification is not going to be important. That's important at the tenure level, but not at the entry level.
Hey, Mike, there's someone who asked a question here: how much time would it take really to kind of get into this, really get into IT and get into it properly? I have a time frame, but could you give me a quick idea, and I'll follow up on that as far as how much time are we really looking at really getting into the, kind of getting into this thing from the ground floor?
Depends, man. Different people have different levels of absorption into technology and comprehension. So I've seen people go from being baristas to being desktop support and things like that in as little as 6 months, 9 months. But that's with full oversight. Someone's kind of watching over them to make sure that their work is done correctly. I think you can probably do it in 6 to 9 months, roughly, at the entry level. I don't think you can come out of being a barista and becoming someone's network engineer. I just don't think that's possible. I don't know any manager that would allow something like that to go down. However, at the entry level, help desk, desktop support, yeah, you could do that in 9 months. That happens all the time. That's what. Let me pull up the site. This organization right here, Year Up, Y-E-A-R-U-P, Year Up. They focus on exactly what we're talking about, bringing Black people into the technology field in a 1-year program. It's only available from 18 to 21, if I remember correctly. And they do it 6 months of training and then 6 months of internship. So that is that's their position. that you can do it in 6 months. They can get you up there in 6 months if you pass, or if you can get into the if you're accepted into their program, because not everybody's accepted into the program. You have to have some form of passion for the game in order to be involved. But they're saying 12 million jobs requiring post-secondary education will go unfilled in the next decade. I want to talk about 1 million IT jobs sitting on the table and not enough people to fill it. 5 million young adults are disconnected from stable career paths. But they're talking about Black Americans in this regard. That's what the program was actually focused on. So it says here, number one, we identify young adults who are highly motivated but lack opportunities to enter mainstream economy. This is a part of the discrimination process that's here, but most companies won't own up to that. They talk with the companies. And number three, young adults spend 6 months in the classroom learning the skills employers are looking for, including soft skills. So they cultivate people into IT professionals. And then young adults intern for 6 months. That's step 4. Then step 5 is you graduate. And then the 6th step is not here, but they actually get you into a state college of your partnership, and you're able to access a bachelor's degree or associate's degree in IT at a very low discount. So, yeah, 6 months is actually a doable rate. He's freaking out at my tabs.
I would agree as well. 6 months is, but I think, you said depending on the person's aptitude, could be faster, but could take longer. I say for one to really develop properly and to get a good, a good skill set in, and they're going to take their time, if you will. I would say, give yourself, at least 24 months, 2 years. And if you want to do a lot faster, and depending on how hungry you are, you'll do it quicker. But that's what I would say, between 6 months to 2 years, somewhere about 18 months, let's just say on the average. That's kind of what we're looking at. If you're looking for immediate, instantaneous turnaround results, I think that is not very realistic. And I wouldn't want anyone's expectations to be thinking at that level, and be very realistic about what you're looking at. So that's what I would say. But I think Mike is right about a lot of that. So that's my take.
Yeah. I dropped the link in the chat for those who are interested in that. Let me see.
Yeah, just to add, Mike, if I can.
Yes, sir.
No, I was just gonna add, everything you guys were saying was correct. You know what I'm saying? It ain't no specific timetable of getting into IT or whatever. Like for me, it took me 2 years, and that's only because I didn't know what I wanted to get into. And I went to a 2-year program from Remington College, where I got a lot of hands-on training. Nowadays, it's a little bit different. I was able to get a network administrator job right out the gate after getting that degree. I moved to a different city. That was another thing. But as long as you can demonstrate, at that point, that you can actually do the work, then yeah, they'll consider hiring you. But like I said, I don't know at this point exactly, if I think you can get in quicker than it took me. Like I said, it took me 2 years. But I mean, it's all on if you can demonstrate that you can handle the technology and work with the technology. That's all I wanted to add. My bad.
Yeah, your mileage may vary. It depends on what market you're in. I think for a help desk person, like I said, I've been following, the Europe program for probably about 20 years now. And I've been in IT. I've never taken the program, but I have had interns who come under that program do phenomenal. A lot of Black males who got into IT got into that program. So 6 months training, 6 months internship, that has been proven. That's a proven track record that it works. That's why they haven't changed the recipe at all. It actually works. It's effective. I will say that they have, I think, if I remember correctly, a 99% placement. Very few people are never turned away from it in terms of getting IT. So the problem is most of these organizations that are working with these programs will never admit that the reason why a lot of these Black males can't get into these programs, can't get into their organizations because they're racist. They'll never admit to that though. But they'll partner with the program like that is there to defy the whole entire racist propaganda. It really makes my blood boil when I hear shit like this, man. It's frustrating. It's really frustrating because there's so much denial as to why you can't fill IT roles. They never want to attribute it to a lot of the discrimination that they're practicing themselves. Unnecessary discrimination. Let me put emphasis behind that. Unnecessary discrimination.
But I do believe that the game is so wide open with the discrimination that is out there, and there is discrimination, make no mistake about it. The opportunities are still great. So
it is. And people can't get in. I'm not saying don't apply. I'm saying the reason why a lot of these roles go unfulfilled, or a lot of these Black people don't get into these roles, is because there's a lot of discrimination in there. Not just the fact that they're not hiring, but there's always this sort of diversity and inclusion issue. It's a hot button topic now because of who's in the White House now. So they're all trying to scramble to try to make accommodations around this buzz term. But the reason why a program like Europe even exists is because of the discrimination, but they'll never admit to that. They'll just pretend that a said person did not have the skill set. When in reality, we know that these people have all of the ability to actually do the work or carry on those responsibilities. They're just not given the opportunity. This is what the program is designed for, to give that opportunity. They don't have enough capacity to even bring in enough Black males to get through these programs. Because it's a lack of funding, because there's a lack of interest in actually having more diversity, inclusion in the office. The political aspect behind this, man, it makes my blood boil. It infuriates me. It's like trying to pull teeth with some of these mayonnaise people sometimes. All right, this last one, man, is CompTIA's Cloud Plus. Make sure you pass the Network Plus first and the Server Plus first before you take on this. You probably could jump on this, but this is just an accessory cert to your Network Plus. I know somebody's going to ask me, well, why don't you recommend CCNA? Well, because if you've never worked with CCNA Cisco equipment, then it's not going to make any sense. Like the article is saying, don't just have a bunch of buzz branded certifications like Cisco behind your name, and you can't even answer some of the questions about the intricate details behind it. So that's why. That's why I don't recommend it right now. Jobs that use Cloud Plus, network administrator, network engineer. So these areas are covered. Certification does go over that. What skills will you learn? Configurations and deployments, analyze system requirements to successfully execute workload migrations to the cloud, security, implement appropriate security controls given requirements, management, determine proper allocations of cloud resources and apply necessary changes based on performance data, troubleshoot capacity, automation, connectivity, and security issues related to cloud implementations, maintenance, apply appropriate technologies and processes, including automation and orchestration to ensure desired system performance. maximum of 90 questions in 90 minutes. Again, you got about 60 seconds per question. And there's also performance-based questions on there. So there's a simulator on there for quite a few questions. So you're gonna be asked to connect certain switches and routers and certain technology stacks together. Those can be pretty brutal. That eats up a lot of your time. I would spend less time on questions and focus more on the simulator stuff. Check the box on some of those questions if you can't figure it out in 30 seconds and move on to the next question. And just come back at the end of the exam and go over those questions and give the best answer that you can see fit. So yeah. Start that as well.
Yeah, and Mike, just to put it in perspective, I guess for people that may be wondering, when you talking about cloud, eventually everything is going to be moving to the cloud. And what I wanted to start with was that once you start working in these IT departments and you start understanding budgeting and understanding that the IT managers, they're trying to save money, and local hardware is very expensive. It's expensive to maintain, as well as the end of life on a lot of this hardware is an issue that they're trying to fix, and that's where cloud comes into play, because when you're looking at putting some of this stuff on the cloud, it's actually you're paying Microsoft or whoever is running that data center to maintain those servers at a cheaper price than what you would pay to manage this hardware at a local level. There are still companies out there running local hardware. They may have some virtualization locally, but the cloud is a cheaper alternative because you only pay for the bandwidth, and that's only to put it in to people that don't know perspective, or to trying to break it down so they can understand it. But at a certain point, all this stuff is going to get stored in the cloud. That way, it's less on maintenance and all that when it comes to hardware. So, just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I think you're going to start to see a lot more hybridization. And hybridization means that some core services are still a part of the on-prem infrastructure, and then some of the auxiliary services such as software as a service will be in the cloud as noted. So that's what you're going to start to see is a lot more hybrid stuff. One of the other places I worked at didn't have any sort of infrastructure on site in the headquarters. Everything was in the cloud. Everything was in AWS. So there was nobody to talk to about going into a data center because all the data center was in the cloud. So keep that in mind. I think that's what a lot of companies are going to go through next year is hybridization. They don't typically trust putting their data inside the cloud, especially if they have to be FedRAMP and what do you call it? What are the other regulations? HIPAA certified and or HIPAA compliant and things of that nature. They're gonna have a difficult time maintaining control over their data in places that they don't have physical access to. So keep that in mind as well, that those are strategies that a lot of companies are starting to adopt, is the hybridization. Yeah, Real Vinsanity says, yes, bro, that discrimination stuff is real. Yeah, I think you're starting to see I think it's starting to, we're at the tail end of the discrimination thing now. The issue now, because 900 plus thousand recs on the table need to be filled, and discriminating against one group of people isn't going to help you. A lot of those people are out the door now. And if you go on something like Glassdoor reviews, you start to see a lot of reviews are cropping up from places like Facebook and Google and whatnot, where people, you know, who had these very tumultuous experiences are posting it publicly now. Before, that was never the case. They would just take their ball and go home. But now they're not just taking their ball and go home. They're actually throwing the ball at the building now, trying to get the company's attention. Usually what happens in discrimination in IT is that they tend to have a high turnover rate, or they lack the diversity to actually brag about, like other companies. I know one of the other companies I was working at not too long ago, there was, if anything, white people were actually the minority in there. And the place actually ran very well in comparison to other places. So anytime the way racism works is that it's a group dynamic. And in the workplace, in order for this to be effective, you have to have other white people in places that can actually create that sort of network bond that allows that sort of racism to permeate the environment. Once you break up those networks, once you break up that dynamic, it's no longer effective. And that's what they have found, at least in my experience, that's what they have found. So having more diversity has less problems in the long run of discrimination and lawsuits and HR filings and stuff like that. Now, you may have some other issues, you know, with linguistics, Chinese people speaking Mandarin or Cantonese, and you know, other people not understanding it, and people speaking Spanish in the workplace and not understanding, other people not understanding. You may run into those issues of different cultures, but for all intents and purposes, most of the environments I've been to that have been highly diverse have less problems. It's a lot more vibrant. Anytime you have way too many white people in there, it's bound to happen that there's racial incidents that's going to take place, because people are bringing that stuff in from home and they're injecting it into the workplace, and then they don't understand why you have such high turnover rates, or why you can't, be on the cover of CIO or Computer World or something like that, and brag about your diversity.
Yeah, and racism, like you said, in a white environment, or mostly Caucasoid environment, you have to have people who really buy into it. And if they buy into it, then you're gonna have a very racist type of environment. But you'll have some environments where you'll have some who will not fully buy into that, yeah, and that can break it up as well. So especially hiring managers and other key people in there, you might have some underlings who are kind of racist. But as far as having a lot of the fish head rots. The fish rots from the head down. So so you have to look at it from that perspective as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. I think even Microsoft, right? If you look at Microsoft, they changed their CEOs, right? Now you have an Indian person running the company, because that's the face of he looks more like the worker base than not. So having a white man at the helm of an organization, it has come to a point where people are not really feeling that anymore. That's not really the thing anymore. You see many of your successful companies now all have non-white males at the top now. Maybe that might be for cosmetic reasons, for PR reasons, but it's still the point of the matter is they're recognizing that you cannot run your organization like that anymore. It's just not, it's not feasible, especially when other companies are coming up and they're competing, and they have this sort of colorful environment of a lot of peppers in the sea of salt. That's becoming a lot more contagious as a public relations campaign. If your company doesn't have that, you're screwed. You're very much screwed, because you can't hold talent that way, and you can't attract talent either. I think Apple might have said this as well, that they didn't start seeing a lot more innovation until they started having more diversity in their hiring practices. So that's what's going on now. So I talk about the racism only because it's real, but it's starting to. I think in a few years that's just going to be a thing of the past in the workplace, because it's just not going to be. It's not going to be popular thing to do. No one's going to want to be a part of that. No one wants to get caught up in lawsuits. No one wants to get caught up in PR campaigns like Google's going through right now. Google switched their CEO out, and now look at their new CEO, Sundar Pichai, I think that's his name. I think he's another Indian guy or Pakistani guy. He, he's running the company now. So they recognize this internally. So I'm not just saying this just to bitch and moan or to complain, but that's the extent of what's going on. And just want you to be mindful of what you're going into, because there's a lot of people who, a lot of Black men who get discouraged at applying to certain roles because they say, oh, well, that place is racist and this and that. Well, you don't know that until you actually get there. But just keep in mind that shit can hit the fan at any given point. So.
Yeah, just keep your eyes open. That's all.
All right, Shalom.